Hello, everyone. My name is Zaheen Nanji, and I'm the host of the Resilience Reflex show. So what is the Resilience Reflex? I get asked all the time. Well, the Resilience Reflex is my brand, but basically it's my 3-step system on how to build your resilience muscle so you can easily bounce back, just like this, from any challenges, from any adversity. You can easily bounce back, and it's a 3-step system. So if you want to know more, make sure you opt into my email list and access the free audio series on thriving in the midst of change, because honestly, change too can be a problem, because sometimes we just get stuck in the chaos of change. But I'm here to tell you that change is good if you look at it in a different view. So I'm excited today because I have a guest with me who I've known for a while now. I think, what, three years for sure, 3 or 4 years, right, Chris?
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Chris and I met through our mentor, Michael Lozier, who is the author of the book Law of Attraction, The Science of Attracting More of What You Want and Less of What You Don't. Now, I got certified with Michael to teach his work, I believe in 2008. And then since then, we've just been in touch, and I'm so excited because I was really touched by Chris's story, and I think that everyone needs to hear his story because we can all find our story in his. And I brought Chris on because I found that he has gone through a huge challenge. If I were in the same situation, I don't know if I would have been able to do what he did. And sometimes we all go back and think about that, right? Would I be able to do what he did? But he's going to show us, and he's going to teach us how he went from trauma to triumph. So let me introduce you, Chris. So Chris Lee inspires others to find their true purpose in life and arms them with the courage to live that. He has 2 books. Okay, so you're going to show us those 2 books. And he hosts his own internet talk radio show. And he was just telling me that it's on iTunes. So if you go on there, it's the Chris Lee Show. And Chris uses a mixture of emotional healing techniques and the philosophy of universal synchronicity to help his listeners, readers, and his clients achieve success. So welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you. Wow. After that introduction, I feel like I got big shoes to fill. Thank you so much.
Well,
and
it's true.
Yeah, thank you. And you mentioned Michael Lozier. You trained with him in 2008. I trained with him in 2010. And if I could just share a really funny story about my experience trying to get to the training in Vancouver, and it's something that just is going to show you what kind of guy Michael is. So in 2010, when it was time for me to go for my training, to train with Michael, I was excited, like super excited, had been saving up money, not just to take the course, but to, hang out in Vancouver. And so I was just like super duper excited. The day that I was supposed to leave here in Detroit, there was a small earthquake. And there's never earthquakes in Detroit, but that day there was a small earthquake. So that delayed the flights. Later on that day, there was a tornado, and there's never a tornado in Detroit. So I ended up having to wait until the next day to fly out, missing like half a day of the course. And when I got there and I saw Michael and I started going into this story and telling them all this stuff had happened, and Michael just said, "Come here." And he gave me a hug, and all of that stress just fell away, and I was like ready to learn. So that was my first introduction to Michael Lozier in person.
Wow, that's a great story.
Yeah.
You've gone through a lot there just to get to Vancouver, and it's only about an hour's flight from here, from where I am. But Chris, tell us about your story and what. And I know your story because I know that you went through a lot of trauma. But if you can tell the listeners and the viewers here on what happened and what was the change that occurred in your life?
Yep. So basically, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of my story. What happened basically was one day on my way to work, I got hit by a fire truck, and boy, did it hurt. And I'm able to laugh about it now, but it was no laughing matter when it happened. I sustained, of course, physical injuries from that accident, but I also acquired a traumatic brain injury, or what I would refer to as a TBI. And a traumatic brain injury is when your brain gets banged around inside of your skull. Actually, on the inside of your skull, there are pointy little spikes. And so when your brain gets banged around in there from whatever trauma is causing your injury, could be from an altercation, an accident, getting hit in the head with a ball, anything that causes that type of a brain trauma. Lots of veterans get it if they're near a blast. That blast will jar their brain, and it kills brain cells. And so when your brain cells die, a part of you kind of dies, you know. And so having a TBI or a brain injury is something that is kind of difficult to deal with, in the sense that you start doing things and you don't understand why you're doing them. You start experiencing things and you don't understand, like, why is this going on? So as I was going through the recovery process from the accident, you know, I had a strained neck, and I forget all the fancy medical terms, but I was wearing a neck brace, and my spine was hurting, and my back was hurting, and my legs were hurting. And I started doing weird things, like putting things that go in the fridge into the cupboard, and things that go into the cupboard and the fridge, and I was falling down, and I was having mood swings and crying spells and nightmares. I'm like, oh. And I just thought it was just because I got my clot cleaned, you know, in the accident, because I got hit pretty good. My head actually hit the headrest on the seat next to me. And I started having these horrible nightmares. And it, you know, it was like, okay, what's going on here? And it took a few months to figure out what was going on. The healing process for a TBI is to reactivate other brain cells, because we all have millions of brain cells in our brain that lie dormant. And so that's the purpose of the recovery efforts from a traumatic brain injury. What I found was, what I discovered that helped me out tremendously, and this is common knowledge, is just something that a lot of people don't take the time to delve into. When it comes to, and this is with a TBI, this is with any type of a physical ailment, any type of a mental ailment, yes, there's something that needs to take place. There's healing that needs to take place, but there's also an emotional element that's involved that a lot of times people ignore that. And so part of what really helped me with my recovery process was to address the emotional aspect of everything that was going on.
Wow. And I just want to know, like, how did other people around you deal with that? Like when you forgot things, or I can imagine the pain that you went through, of course. Well, I can't imagine, but I can understand. But just what you were going through and how you started to put things, you know, or the mood swings. Did you notice how the other people around you were?
Yeah. At the time, my family, we were all living together, and it was a strain, because here was, you know, you take my kids, for instance, here's dad. Dad was always upbeat, jovial, you know, the leader of the family. You know, I had a stepson who was in high school, and my daughter was 7 or 8 years old. And now I was reduced to a child, basically. You know, that summer, my daughter had to keep an eye on me. She basically watched me that summer, you know, while my wife worked. And it was tough. It was a strain, because in a family, it's a balance. And when that balance is suddenly thrown into a different direction, people have to pick up slack, and it was kind of crazy.
So tell me when the change occurred for you. Like, you know, what happened, like one day where you said, okay, you know what, I gotta do something about my life.
Yes, I had just gotten on Facebook. I want to say this might have been 2008. And someone who I met on Facebook was having a seminar. On the way to that seminar, and the seminar was about networking. It was Tammy Turner, who was a very good friend of mine and mentor of mine as well for many years. And when I was on my way to that meeting, I saw a man on a walker. And after that meeting was over, I saw the man carrying the walker on his shoulders. And I thought, my goodness, what kind of scam are these guys running? So I went over there to give this guy, because here I am with a brain injury and I'm struggling, and this guy here is faking it. So I thought. And what had happened, he had attended a seminar about energy medicine or energy healing, which basically they refer to it as acupuncture without the needles, emotional freedom technique, tapping on the various parts of the face.
Mm-hmm.
And by this time, Zaheen, I was so desperate. I was on 11 different medications. I'd end up being on 14 different medications. None of it was working. Before I would go to bed at night, I was not sleeping. Before I would go to sleep, I would take a sleeping pill, a pain pill, and a shot of vodka. And
Wow.
I'd still sleep for 3 or 4 hours. So by this point, I was willing to try anything. Previously, energy medicine and stuff like that, EFTs, weird, spooky, not willing to try it. But in that moment, the universe put me in that spot. So to say, hey, here's something that can help you.
Yeah, I strongly believe that, sometimes things happen for a reason, or you're meant to bump into someone for a reason. I know people call it synchronicity. I truly believe that you are at a certain place at a certain time for a reason. So, so how did you go into energy medicine? Did you look into it some more? And that's when you started to see the change occurring?
Yeah, and what happened was I went to a meeting. They were having meetings every week, and I went to a meeting, and it was on Wednesday night. And I went there, and they did the tapping on the various parts of your face, the emotional freedom technique. And I went home that night, and I just told you what I used to do every night before I went to bed, right?
Yeah.
Well, I went home that night, and I forgot to take my sleeping pills, and I slept like a baby. And the next night, I forgot to take my sleeping pills. And on Friday night, I said, oh my goodness, I haven't taken my sleeping pills and my pain pills and my shot of vodka in 3 days. What's going on?
Wow.
It was so subtle. And over the course of the next 6 or 7 weeks, I continued to work with the people who showed me that. I learned it myself, and it's something that I've become very passionate about. But going back to the story, that was a turning point. And it was a turning point because emotions are things. And emotions, those of us who understand law of attraction talk about vibrations. Emotions carry their own vibrations. And if you have, your body, 2/3 of us you can't see. We're made up of a spirit, a mind, and a body. The body's the only part you can see. So if you're going to address healing, you have to address those 3 parts of healing. So when I was taking all that medicine, I was just addressing the physical part. I was seeing a counselor, which was kind of helping some, which was addressing the mental part. But when I started this kind of 3-headed monster of healing, if I can compare healing to a monster, the 3-headed monster of body, mind, spirit, that's when I started to get better. That's when I started to feel better. And then couple with that, a natural progression for myself of self-discovery, self-acceptance, and self-healing. And it turned my life around. Now, I used to look at the accident as the worst thing that ever happened to me. And now I look at it as the best thing that ever happened to me.
Wow. And I'm going to repeat that. So you say that it was the worst thing you thought that happened to you, but now it's the best thing that happened to you. Tell us why.
Yeah, because it helped me to change my life and to turn my life around. So prior to the accident, I worked just a regular 9-to-5 job, was making pretty good money at it actually, and had just gotten in a rut with life. I still had dreams and I still had aspirations, but I had gotten into this rut of just leading this really self-indulgent life and was not very healthy, had picked up some very unhealthy habits. I always wanted to help people. I always wanted to make a difference in people's lives. And who would have ever thought that having a brain injury, not being able to type on a computer anymore, having trouble putting sentences together, who would have thought that that would be the catalyst? And what I learned was because I used to want to say, this is this perfect life I've created. I can show you how to create a perfect life. Now, what I say is, look at this thing that happened to me. Look how bad this was. Look at what I've had to overcome. Chances are you've been through something like that in your life, and I can show you how to overcome, or at the very least, how to cope with it.
That is such a good way to do it, because I find that there are so many speakers or coaches or out there that say that, look, this is what I have. But I think showing the weakest part of you, where this is what I couldn't do. I couldn't type. I couldn't, feed myself probably, like I'm not sure. Or I wouldn't be able to talk. And, this is where I am right now. And so I find that is so, so powerful, because then it helps, it inspires people, not help, but it inspires people that if he can do it, some guy in Detroit can do it. I can do it too. So tell us then, if you could sum this up in a way that, okay, and I know I'm actually putting you on the spot, Chris, but if you can give us some tools, 1, 2, 3, 4, of how you overcame your obstacles, what would those be?
Yeah, for sure. The 3 would be awareness, discovery, and acceptance. And I'll expand on those a little bit. Awareness is just becoming aware of what this particular challenge is. When I went through the recovery process of having a brain injury, what I found out was I had thinking patterns, recurring thoughts that were preventing me from healing. And these were limiting beliefs or like negative self-talk, things that I was telling myself. So the first thing is to become aware of the thing that's bothering you. And this can be the trickiest step. Not the hardest step, but the trickiest step. Because sometimes we have things that are in our blind spots. Like when you're driving in the car, you can't see over your shoulder and there's not a mirror, so you have to turn around and look. Sometimes we can find it out ourselves, and sometimes we may need a friend or a coach or a mentor, a spouse or a best friend to kind of tell us. You kind of have a hunch. I have trouble with this. A lot of people have trouble with, and this was something that I had to overcome. I always felt like for many years, just because of various life experiences, that I was not good enough. And so when you think that thought over and over again, anytime you try something, you say, I'm not good enough to do this. And that was something that was holding me back from recovering from the brain injuries. Like I'm not good enough to overcome all of these things. So having that awareness is a good first step. The second step is kind of goes hand in hand, is the discovery. It's figuring this out. So if you take a month or even a week and you write down these patterns when you have this awareness, I'm a writer. I love to write. When it's time to write, I procrastinate. When it's time to sit down at the computer, I say, oh, I got to get a drink. I got to text somebody. I got to check email because I feel like I should be doing something else. Right. So that's the discovery. You realize it. And then you always have a choice with the awareness and the discovery. And if you feel like you're not ready to change that, it's okay. But I guarantee when you start noticing these patterns, it'll drive you crazy. It's like a leaky sink. Like, I got to get this fixed. And then the last, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say that I'm so glad that you brought the first 2 steps up, because I find this is where a lot of people who are struggling with challenges and obstacles miss out, because we get stuck in the worry. Why is this happening to me? Or we get stuck in the mind frame that, like the way you were saying, right? Like, oh, I can't do this, or why, right? But instead of that, just stop and just become aware of what is making me think this way, or why am I saying this to myself? And just to become aware of that is the first step. And I'm glad you brought that up. So go ahead with the third one.
Yeah, absolutely. So the third step is acceptance.
Mm.
And that's something that a lot of us are lacking in, is acceptance of ourselves, acceptance of others. So you might find out that you are a procrastinator, and you know what? It's okay. You might find out that you have trouble accepting love, being close to people, and it's okay. Now, the fourth step is whatever it is that you believe in that will help you to clear what you've discovered. So one of my big things is EFT and affirmations. So I write affirmations for everything, and I read those affirmations. I do EFT at the same time. I'll do affirmations. Other things might work for other people. Meditation might be your thing. Other forms of energy medicine might be your thing. Praying might be your thing. The biggest part is that the awareness and the discovery, how you clear that out, that is the part that there's a limitless number of ways that you can do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if I can just share with the viewers, because I do like making notes and sharing with them. So the first one here is awareness. And like, this is where you're saying to become aware of your thoughts and the belief patterns that you have. Then the second one is discovery, and to just make note of the patterns that you have again. And of course, you have a choice, whether to work with the pattern or to just leave it and just observe it some more. And then you say the third one is acceptance. And the fourth one is what I would call resources, like the way you mentioned that there's EFT, or there's, meditation, or, someone can even say, maybe it's time to go and see a coach, right?
Yeah.
Who can help me. So I know that my husband and I have a wellness center, and we get people coming to see us because they're in pain, or they want to get to their ideal weight, or they want to get some coaching done. So we have the resources to help them out, and that's what you're saying, correct, Chris?
Absolutely. And something else I wanted to add to that too, when you were talking about your you and your husband's business, which I'm sure you'll be able to attest to this as well. I used to weigh 329 pounds. I've lost almost 100 pounds.
Wow.
And I will have to say that carrying extra weight is not a root cause. It's a symptom of something else that's going on. And I'll say the same thing about, even with healing from the brain injury, there's still behind that was a root cause. And there's something that when you're ready to let go of, you'll be able to let go of, that will help you to make giant strides. Very important.
So I'm glad also you brought that up, because we have clients who come in and they want a quick fix, but first they have to understand the why. They have to understand the why behind their weight struggle. Yes?
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So, one of the things when we spoke before the show, you said being grateful was very important to you. So tell me, how did gratitude play in your healing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the part that gratitude played in the healing is, if you can find a reason to be thankful for anything that you've been through, now you can release it. Sometimes they say, pardon me, they say you have to go through it to get through it. If you can, because this is what happened. They tried to start me doing meditation and stuff like that. When I was really bad with a brain injury, I could only meditate for probably 90 seconds. And I listened to a song by one of my favorite jazz groups, Hiroshima. I listened to a song called Dreams by them. And I couldn't even make it through the whole song before my mind would just go crazy. So what I started doing to focus myself is I started naming things I was grateful for. And of course, when you're in a bad situation, you're like, I can only think of like 3 things. And then I could think of a bunch of things. And I started thinking of abstract things I was thankful for. And one day I had the discovery of getting into the habit of being able to be thankful for the bad things that happened. So when I could think about times where I felt like someone may have wronged me, or the accident was not my fault and it turned my life upside down, when I could find something in those things to be grateful for, that's when my healing went to another level.
Wow, that's really powerful. When you say that you also found the gratitude in the bad things, like even though they may not be bad, but in most people's mind they are bad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Right?
I should have used that. I should have used the air quotation marks. Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Because we
Wow.
think they're bad, and then we get a different awareness, and we understand that it just is. We attach the good and the bad to it.
Yes. You know, there have been times in my life where exactly the same thing, where I find, why did that happen to me? And that was the bad thing, right? But then I look back and I go, oh, I'm so glad it happened, because we always find the positive intention behind the negative. And
Mhm.
that's what I always want to harp on, is that even though it may be bad at that moment, think about the positive intention behind that. And figure out, what did you get from that negative time in your life, or situation, right?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so tell the viewers and the listeners, how has this helped you, just to continue on with being grateful and trying to overcome the challenges and being resilient. How has that helped you overcome the setbacks? I mean, look at you now.
Hmm.
You are an internet talk show radio. You're an author. You're a speaker. You see clients and help them move through their hurt. Um, how has doing all this helped you?
Yeah, I would say it has, first and foremost, and I've admitted this probably 3 dozen times, and it still bugs me a little bit to admit this, but it it humbled me to go through that experience, because prior to the accident, I was someone who people consider to be highly intelligent. And sometimes people who are highly intelligent tend to look down on people who are not.
Mm.
The compassion that I gain from going through my experience, I have been able to have that compassion for every person that I meet. So I meet people, and sometimes you meet people, and it seems like there may not be any redeeming qualities about that person whatsoever. But because of my experience, and because now I can extend that compassion to people, I'm able to see the good in everybody. And when you're able to see the good in somebody, you're able to find out what it is that can help them, what they need to help them, and just the fact that there is some good to be pulled out. You talked about positive intent and positive intentions behind actions, and I have come to learn, even the most, now there are people that do terrible, heinous crimes, but for the most part, people are good and people are full of love. They just are misinterpreting something, or they're
Mm.
not being loved the way that they want or need to be loved. And if you can help somebody to understand that or gain some awareness about that, you've helped them turn their life around.
Yeah. So then, okay, if we were to, take the concept that you have, right? Finding the good in anyone. How would you say that to someone who is going through an abusive relationship? Or how would you tell them that find the good in the other person?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. And I spoke to a group of women once that were, it was an event for women who were either victims or survivors of domestic abuse. And that is a very, very good question. And that is a very, very valid question. So what I usually share with people, and you have to word it differently depending on who you're dealing with, is you've attracted this person into your life,
Mm.
this person that is flawed, this person that may put their hands on you or may verbally abuse you, do terrible things to you. And you say, what kind of sense does that make? Why would I attract this people? But you have something in you to where you saw something in that person that attracted you to them,
Mm.
but they need healing as well. Sometimes
Mm.
you're able to help them, sometimes you're not. But when you, again, get an awareness of the pattern, why am I attracting this kind of person into my life? And so you're attracting someone who has not felt the love that they needed, or who has not healed from a past situation that they went through, causing them to be that way. And that's not necessarily a negative thing, because you may be able to help that person, but you've just got to get past the things that are going on right now.
And then even if you can't help them, Chris, I just want to go back to the way you said how you want to become aware of the patterns. And if it's a pattern that they have, then they need to figure out how to break the pattern, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, can you believe it? Half an hour has gone by.
Wow.
So I know, and we were just having fun here, and I wish I had some more time to talk to you, but time's up. But I wanted to get your book up here, and if you can show the book to our viewers and listeners. So it's called From Frustration to Fulfillment. Again, From Frustration to Fulfillment. And Chris, can they find that on the website or Amazon?
Yes, this is available on Amazon.com. And I have a special offer for viewers and listeners of the show. If you go to the Facebook page, The Chris Lee Show, and you post that you've heard me or saw me on this show, you inbox me, I will send you absolutely free, because I have some extra books, and I'm feeling happy about this. Absolutely free. I will send you an autographed copy of my book for the first, we'll say, 25 people that respond. Go to the Facebook page, The Chris Lee Show, put your information in there, and I'll send you an autographed book for free.
Okay. And is it okay if I were to put your website on my blog so that people know how to get to your Facebook page?
Absolutely. That would be awesome.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so you all heard that he is going to give 25 copies, or how many ever he can have before the 25 or 25 to the viewers and the listeners of the show. So make sure you go to his Facebook, the Facebook show page, which is Chris Lee Show, correct? Chris Lee Show on Facebook. And let him know that you heard him here, and he will get you a free autographed book. Okay, so I just wanted to let you know that my book is coming out at the end of the month here, so September 29th. Let me show you the cover, and it's right there, The Resilience Reflex. I know the light's on there, but it's 8 keys to transforming your barriers into success in life and business. 8 keys, you'll learn that. So September 29th, it will go on Amazon, and it'll be for a low price of 99 cents only for one day. If you want to know more, get on my website, which is right here, zaheennanji.com. You can get the free audio series, as well as you'll know about the launch on September 29th. Okay, Chris, well, thank you so much. You were a delight to have on the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. And until next time, September 27th is the next show. And on there, if you want to know how to write a book, I'll have my coach with me, Les Kletke, who helped me write my book. And it's going to be a bestseller. I know that. All right. So until September 27th, we'll see you on my blog. Make sure you read my blog. There you go. And make sure you go to chrisleeshow.com to learn more about Chris. Until then, goodbye.